Okay, so this is my evaluation for my Unit 11 piece, my performance that we did at the end, but also an overview of how the project went for me. So it's like an overview evaluation. So I'm going to start with the performance. So we performed it twice, and they went well. The first time we did it was in the matinee, and the matinee was probably the best time we'd done it. There was some things that went wrong. So one of my actors forgot their lines, but it wasn't a forgotten line. She picked it up and it missed out a section. But the importance of that section was that because I was asking the audience questions, because it was in a debate style, we ended up only asking 2 questions to the audience when there should have been like 4. So it kind of let that down, but it was fine. We carried on, and the audience didn't know that there was a problem there, but I did. But she apologised, and that's all fine. Yeah, the debate style worked really well in the matinee, I think. There was a lot of people asking questions near the end, and I think it works better because it was a bigger audience, because later on in the night there was 5 performances on our night, and we really only a couple of people came for each person, so there wasn't many people in the audience. And also my actors who was in my piece asked their parents not to really speak or say anything, because we wanted the other people to have a chance, knowing that they knew the piece. Like my mum and dad didn't ask a question because they knew what the piece was going to be about. So at the end of the performance, when I asked about the debate, nobody asked any questions. Nobody wanted to talk politically or anything, and that's fine. But it kind of lost the feel for the piece, really, because that's what the piece was about. But in the matinee, I was asked questions about Brexit, about how the refugees are affecting the NHS and how it affects housing, and it was kind of it was shocking because I didn't think anyone was really going to say anything, but I made sure I was prepared because it's a crisis that I'm passionate about, so I knew a lot of facts anyway, and it helped that I'd done a lot of research, not just during the project but before the project, knowing that I've gone back with this for a long time. So I knew what to say, but I also didn't want it to seem like my answer was right and their answer is wrong. That was a major importance to the whole piece, because there won't be an ending to this crisis. It won't end. It's a humanitarian crisis that's been happening for many years. Before this one, there was food and like many humanitarian crises that happen all the time, and unless the world starts again, I truly believe that we can't end them. So I didn't want them to think they're wrong and I'm right, or that I thought that they're wrong and I'm right. So I accepted their opinions, but I came back with some facts that they might not have known before. The fact that there's 0.25% of refugees that are actually living in the UK. So when people say that we're overpopulated, we actually aren't. So yeah, that was a shocking thing for people to hear. So the matinee was ended out to be the best piece, but if I'd have known that one was going to be better and it was going to be a bigger audience, I feel like I would have given a lot more to my performance, and I improved during the night. So I have a monologue about it's a verbatim piece about the crossing over the sea, and at first I was doing it quite solemn and that he was looking back on it, and then I got notes from the tutor that it was kind of coming across like I was just reading it, and that's fine. So then in the night I made sure I gave emotion to it and made it just a lot more emotive, like I was the character, even though it wasn't. Yeah, it was a confusing piece about multiple role playing, but that I was the character and it was deeply the character, and I felt better doing it that way. So if I could go back, I would make sure that I would do it that way on the matinee. And really, I should have acted it the same in the matinee and on the night, but because of the feedback I got, I made sure that I adjusted to that. I got feedback from the audience in the matinee, and people thought that it was a really interesting topic, but I think that what they were confused about was at the start of my piece, I do a chat about what my piece was going to be about, because this project has really made me come on a full journey, and I know it's meant to, but it really has. So I started with the idea of gender and identity, and then somebody mentioned the word migration to me for a name for their piece, and that reminded me about all the stuff I've done with refugees before. So I knew that that was where I was heading, and it was going to be a lot about facts and politics, but that I wasn't getting any feeling from it, and I was finding it really hard to connect to the audience, because to them, they're just hearing facts and they can't connect because it's not their life. They don't live that life. When you hear facts, I'm telling you, okay, it's shocking, but minutes later you forget about it because it's not your life. So I thought, okay, after a couple of rehearsals and just not getting a feel for the piece, I was struggling a lot, I decided to work on one person's story and found an illustration from a refugee called Dana, and she had drew it herself and wrote it, obviously, and it really connected to me, the fact that she'd drawn it and that it was her story, but also it wasn't just her, she was the main person, but it showed her mum and her brother, and yeah, it was a real nice story, but also shocking of what she's been through. So I knew that was the one to do. So at the start of the performance, I read that out, and the journey that I took, and that, like, I want to humanise a crisis that's dehumanised millions, and people said at first they thought that the performance wasn't going to go ahead, but that was kind of what I wanted to get the vibe of. That's why I was going for the uneditedness of it, and the multi-role playing was obvious from the start, that when I'm an interviewer, and then when the refugee, who R1 is called Yara, when she says my brother, the interviewer turns into the brother. So I was making it really obvious, and it was a nice technique, and I kind of feel like I've come across a new style of theatre where it can be a part interview, part live interview, and part acted. And I kind of think that way it makes the audience connect more to an interview if it was part acted out, because they can visualise what the person's saying. So that went really well, and I really enjoyed doing that, and it's something that I might consider taking on into my FMP. There is things I would change. I would make sure that the video that I play at the start of the interview was just a better quality, and a better acting, better everything, really, because it was rushed. Honestly, it was rushed, but it was because there was a lot of room changes going on at the time, because there was a lot of performances going on in college, and we only had this one room, but then there was also a class in there, so we had to make sure the class were quiet for a bit so we could film this. So it was really rushed, and it really made me kind of embarrassed to watch that when I watched it in the matinee, but it was okay. But okay is not good enough, really. The lighting, I thought, worked really well. Because at first I told Sean, our technician, I said that I just wanted lights up the whole time, so that the audience were in it and they couldn't escape, and that they couldn't just sit back and relax, because it wasn't that type of piece. This was hard hitting, it was real. These things are really happening to real people. But when we did our tech rehearsal, it just wasn't working that way. So we made sure that when the acting was happening, the lights were down across the audience, and then when we turned to the debate style, to the forum theatre style, the lights came up and they felt more involved, which really worked, actually. I was really proud of that. But I wish that maybe the whole house lights would have come up, like it was a complete change. So instead of just having stage lights, the main fluorescent lights, and you hear the click on the wall, and that, like, okay, this is the real bit. This is not the real bit. Like, I think that would have not added anything to the performance really, but it would have just made me feel kind of better from what I was showing, and then I could see the audience more. But overall, I was impressed, and I was really impressed with the two actresses I chose. I chose Terry Nevin and Abby. I forgot her second name. Yeah, but Terry and Abby, and they worked really well and really hard, and I kind of give them the script last minute because it was a last minute decision. I think I chose about 3 weeks before the performance that this was the idea I was going with because of my past one that just wasn't getting anywhere. And they learnt it, they struggled with it, they got the emotion when I wanted the emotion, they understood with the multi-role playing, which was difficult to write. That was a big thing, that when I was writing it I was kind of confusing myself and visualising the stage directions but not writing them down, which is a note which I need to take on, that in my FNP or when I go to drama school or university, that if I ever do writing again, that the stage directions are very important, not just for actors but also for the directors who have wrote it, or the screenplay writers, because the stage writers, because I think you forget sometimes, and sometimes my actors were telling me that this is the way you said last time, because I was getting carried away because I'd forgot what I'd wrote. So annotating scripts is something that I'm going to have to do a lot. But again, it's a learning process. The whole of the project was fun to do. At times it was really difficult, and it was when we were finding research, that's when I was struggling, because there's so much research out there on the crisis, because it's a current political crisis that's happening. But I didn't want to shove politics down people's throats, because some people don't want that. Some people like to keep their political views to themselves, and that's fine. So it was hard to find the facts and to narrow it down. So I was going to do the Alan Kurdi story, the young boy that was found on the beach, but again, it just wasn't going anywhere, and it was too hard hitting for me. And one of my tutor said that she can't look at the picture, and it's the image that I wanted, and I wanted them to know that, and I wanted the audience to see that, but I don't want to distress people, because that wasn't what the piece was going to be about. And nah, but I do feel, I've gone off track a bit here, but I do feel that my piece was probably one of my whole night of performances actually was one of the nights that really felt like a festival. The other nights weren't so festivally, like art festivals. I've been to a lot of European festivals and a lot of art festivals, so I kind of knew what to expect, but the stuff I'd seen from the other nights wasn't there. There's quite a lot of hard hitting stuff at art festivals and real life things, and it felt like ours fit together, which again wasn't the plan. When I found out when my night was going to be played, we were having sections of the night, so it was going to be gender, storytelling, documentary, so it was going to be, each night was a theme, and ours was women and gender, and I was kind of like, mine doesn't fit into that. Yeah, it's a woman refugee, but it's not about the fact that she's a woman. But then as performing it kind of, I couldn't have understood, and I felt that it was the perfect place for it to be performed, and that it wouldn't have been the same in any other place. Yeah. I feel like there's something on my screen. So it might have clicked a bit because Yeah. So overall, the project was a big learning curve, and I think that's what it was meant to be about. And I learned a lot about myself and the way I work, and that it's hard to make a show from scratch and to not bounce off people, because I like to have a group where, if I'm a director, yeah, love directing, but I'd rather have a group of people that also are like-minded, so that if I have an idea, I can bounce it off them. But so it's more of a collaborative, organic process, not me saying this is what we're doing and this is how we're going to do it. So I learned that that's something that I want to explore when I explore a collaborative process when it comes to directing, and to make sure that it's not dictated, because I learned that that's not how I work. And I did enjoy the process, but I've learned that I might keep the refugee things and the refugee crisis too, and not include it in my F&P, because it's just too hard, and it's not that it's too personal to me, it's just too hard to show what they go through, because we don't live their lives, and we don't know how they feel. We can listen to words. I had verbatim forum theatre with the debate, but the verbatim was really, I wanted them to hear the exact words, so I had a translation for the language that the Syrian refugees speak. But again, I showed it to people, but what do they feel? They don't connect, because it's not their lives, and that's fine. So I learned that for the F&P, I'm going to keep away from big political problems, because it was a struggle to narrow down research to just follow one path. It's pretty impossible to do when there's such a wide array of stories. So I found that there was the European crisis, and there's the American Central Crisis with Donald Trump, and it was, which one am I focusing on? So I did focus on the Syrian refugee crisis because it's bigger. But yeah, I think I will be straying away from that. But overall, there is things I would change, but it did go to planned, yeah, ish. But I did enjoy the process, and I will keep in mind the way I worked and try and adapt that and change that in my F&P. So yeah, thank you.